Alright, so today we're going to do our first project inside of here. We're going to make a crate like this. Hopefully you get something at least this good, or that has measurements and some outlines and stuff so you know where everything goes. We're going to have to guesstimate some of this stuff, but that's fine. We can live with that. We're going to take that and put it out of the way for right now, and then what I'm going to do, and I did it a second ago, but I'm going to do it again. Plane in the front viewport, drag it out. We know that this thing is, if we look at it, if you look at it in your Windows Explorer, you can just roll over any image and you'll see it tells you it's 582 by 582. So we know that it's a square is all I'm caring about at this point. So I'm going to come in here, go to size and say 1 by 1 by, nope, not 10, 1. And then I'm going to take that image and I'm going to just throw it straight into here, onto the object. Make sure you hit the object and not the world behind it, because otherwise you're going to get this error message, or you want to put in the background, which is a pain to get it out. So we're just going to drag it right there on top of it. And if we look at our grid here, we'll see that it's centered, and we really don't need it there. We want it kind of up here. You may notice that if you look at the back of it, it's going to be dark, and there's a few ways to fix that. But for right now, we're only going to be really looking at it from this side. Turn that grid off real quick. Okay, so for me, what I'm going to do, oops, go to front. Okay, I'm going to go to the top view. It doesn't really matter. I do tell people usually to start from the top, because, and I'll show you why. If I drag this out from 1 to 1 and just click it like that, something close to the size I want it to be, go back to front. The reason I tell people to drag it out is because when you make a box, it defines the center of the box, the bottom center of the box at the bottom of the object. We actually want to move the center to the middle of the object, but let's get it scaled right first. So we're going to take this object and go 1 by 1 by 1 inside the modify panel. We're going to name it crate. And then we're going to come over to our hierarchy menu, which looks like a little Pac-Man, or not Pac-Man, a Space Invader to me. And so I'm going to select Effect Pivot Point and Center on Object, so it's right there in the middle. Now, you would think that's all you'd have to do, but you have to actually do something else. We have to come over to the tool right up here, which is Utilities, and we have to reset X form. I told you what this is last week when we talked about it, or on Tuesday when we talked about it. But all it's doing is getting rid of anything before now. So it's going to be just the core object. That means that pivot point may stay in the right place. It may work, but sometimes it doesn't. So I just always just reset. It's an old habit. And then you just have to come back in here and say convert to editable poly. I actually have that shortcut right here inside of my reset Xform menu, and we can talk about how you do that at some other time. Okay, so I want to change this one more thing to purple or a darker color like that, because I'm going to use that darker purple. It makes it easier to see when I'm working on it and stuff, so we're just going to leave it like that. I don't need the grid, except for I want to make sure this is at 0, 0, 0, which doesn't mean I need the grid. You can either type in up here, right click, and type in the numbers you want it to be at 0, 0, 0, or you can use these numbers at the bottom, and I'm going to use these, 1, 0, 0, 0. And now it's perfectly centered on the world. Okay, so I say G. And then I say, what we're going to do is we're going to build the least amount. I try to make it the most efficient so I can make it as fast as I can way to do stuff. So to do that, I'm going to say, change this to 2 first, 2, 2, 2. Oops, not 2 segments. Okay, so it's a little bit bigger. And then we're going to come in here and take a look at it, and we're going to build, really we're just going to build a quarter of it for most of the time. I'm a big fan of using Symmetry and cutting things in half and doing as least amount of modeling as possible. And if we look at this, it's pretty similar all the way around. Now, it's not perfectly similar, but this form right inside of here is similar. We may have a cap that's different. And I don't even think they modeled it in the original version. We may. But this is symmetrical everywhere else, from top to bottom, right to left. So if we go to front, and I go to push 4 to open up the sub-object menu of polygons, and I just grab it, and I delete, and I grab it, and I delete, and I go to the top just to make sure I get that back one too, and then delete, and I just push T to go to top. I go to front. For some reason, I just found a shortcut to turn on Effect Pivot Point, but I didn't mean to. I'm going to have to figure out what that one is. I think it's in my keypad. Or it's my insert. Huh? I'm afraid to keep pushing buttons. Okay. So I've got a quarter of the thing now. Now don't get yourself confused, but I think once you see what you're looking at, it's not too bad. So the first thing we need to do is get these chamfers in here so they look like they're about the right width. So I'm going to come to 2 to go to edge mode, and I must have pushed it again somehow. Stop it. Okay, edge mode. Grab this edge, and this edge, and say chamfer. And then in this chamfer, I'm going to try 0.025. Because that kind of looks about right. So, and these triangles in there actually work out for our advantage. So we'll say, okay, that's good. Okay, so since we know this is a quarter, we have that same, we only have to do 1/4 of it. So we've got our first quarter right there. But let's go ahead and do the symmetry on it so we can see what we're looking at. So I'm going to turn off the edge mode. I'm going to come up to symmetry. And let me tell you the reason I cut that the way I did, if you noticed. I cut it this way. I cut this corner out, and that's the front left top corner. And there's a reason for that. Max has some shortcuts to go between different viewports. Front is F. L is left, and left is this direction, so we can see the actual geometry we're working on. Top is this one. So if I did it and I cut it the other way, when I went to I don't have a shortcut to get to that menu that's readily available. I can push V and then R and go to there, and sometimes it works great, and sometimes it doesn't, so I'll go to right this way. Now I'm looking at the inside of it. I wanted to avoid looking at the inside of the object while I'm modeling. I want to only see the polygons I can see. So if I go back to front and I go back to left, I know that no matter which way I'm looking from the shortcuts, I can see the outside of the object. If I had cut it on the other side, it would be I would be seeing the inside of the object when I went to left. So the one thing that does is it makes us have to push the flip button once we symmetry something. So I'll turn this back on, and you'll see it disappears as soon as I say flip, or as soon as I say symmetry. But once I push that flip button, it flips it over to the other side. And I'm going to do this once because I'm going to keep deleting these, but I'll just do it so you guys get the idea. I don't generally do this because symmetry is something that comes and goes in my building. So I'll say symmetry X. And then I just had an idea. Let me try something. And then I'm going to come up here, rename this one, and call this symmetry Y. And then go over here and see it didn't work again. So I'm going to say flip. And look, now it's back. Okay, so flip, made it go that way. And before that, it was just this. Okay. Z's fine, so all I have to do is say symmetry one more time, and then say Z, and it works fine. And I will come over here and rename and say Z. Now I have a thought. If I say Control Copy, maybe I can just paste those in next time I do the same thing. We'll see. Okay, so then I'm going to go down to the editable poly level of my stack. And I know I've told you guys not to have heavy stacks, but that doesn't mean you can't use them. It just means you don't want to live that way. You don't want to live that thug life. All right, so you go ahead and put this up. And you want to live, with this clean. Now you can see it. And then I'm going to go drop this down and go to vertex and see where we're at. So I've got all these pieces set up. Now I just need really the only change, and this is the crazy thing, the only big thing that's coming is this divider right here. This is all the same. We're going to do these with separate objects for this round. But this is just one strip on 2 different places. And since we have this only right there, we just go to F2, grab it, and then say connect. Now, I don't always use connect. Sometimes I use Swift Loop, but this gives me precise angles and stuff that I may like. So I come over here and I say, I'm going to move this this time. I'm going to pull this over, and I've done some numbers on this so it works out that it's 0.25, which does not, it didn't even do the point. Wow. I'm sorry, negative 25, which doesn't do anything, and then negative 50. And that moves it down. Now, the reason I moved it down so far is because what I want to end up looking at is the distance from here to the middle part in that. And I only have one division, so if I put this up to 2, it divides these two and finds a middle ground for them. So now with these lines on, sometimes it's hard to see the edges on. So if I just turn off the edges by going to F4 or Control-Shift-D for me and then F4, I can see nothing changed. Actually, I guess I pushed a shortcut for this. Oh man. So if I go to turn off the edges, I'll see I get a better version. Like this is how far it is apart. They're close enough for my taste. I mean, I can make them a little closer, but it's going to be fine. So I'll say that. So I've got that cut. Now next thing I need to do is go to 4 mode. So I'm in poly mode. Not move. Grab these three faces and do a bevel. Now bevel does a few things. Bevel goes in and it also does an inset. So I could like say 0 for the extrusion and just inset it and how much I want to inset it. And 0.1 looks pretty good, but I'm going to do it all at once to see if I can get what I want. Negative 0.02, maybe. That works pretty good. Okay, so let's say okay. Now, the only thing that we have missing is the center part of this right here, right? So let's go back down to our stack, and we're going to take a look at it, and we're going to turn our edges back on by pushing F4. And then I'm going to look at this in my edge mode, and I'm going to see what I'm looking at. Now I'm going to turn off the show final results so I can see what it is. Whenever you extrude something, every edge makes a face for you. So what we need to do first is get rid of these faces. So I'm going to grab that face and the other face it made right there, that one, and delete it. Then I'm going back to the front. I pushed F again, and then I'm going to look at these edges here. I really want these edges to all be aligned. So what I could do, I don't want to move the other edges for the other direction, so I'm going to move, or least amount. So I'm going to move these kind of close, and then do this, and come over to X, and it'll snap them together. If I go to left, and I look at the same problem, I'm going to move these, sign is centered, and then just do a quick Y. So now they're all matched up. Okay. So if I go back to the stack, I can see that now I've got these all the way around, but I have a big hole in this one. Okay. Well, that's not a problem. So we're going to go ahead at this point and say convert to editable poly. What that does, it gets rid of our stack. Not a big deal. This is exactly what we wanted. And the way we're going to do this, okay, so now we've got our object and it's cut evenly across, and if we look at it this way we can see that. If I go back to front and I look at this, I need to do these edges now, right? I need that center part cut out. And before I collapse it down, which is what I would generally do, I'm going to go ahead and make some simple cuts here. I'm going to grab this edge right here. Like that. And I'm going to connect. And this time I don't want it to be 1. Actually, I'm not even going to connect. I'm going to go to Swift Loop. And I'm going to calculate where I want that to be. So I'm looking at the distance here. I'm going to kind of guess it to be there. And then I'm going to go to the top one and do the same. Like that. What that's done is cut it all the way through, and those are extra polys we can get rid of. The original plan for this was to be 300 polys, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that's, you know, really low for today's world. But we can do something close to that, if not that. I'm going to come back to here real quick, grab all these edges. Hopefully we grabbed all of them all the way across there, and then I'll say X again, so it snaps them in line. This one doesn't go across any weird cuts, so we shouldn't have that problem. What we can do is get rid of some of these polys, and we'll do that in a few minutes. It's pretty simple to do. It just takes a second. Actually, we'll just do it this way. I just thought of a different way to do it. So I'm going to grab all those. I'm going to do it this way. Grab this one, oops, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and just say Control and backspace. Then I'm going to go to 1, go to vertex mode, turn this target weld, and target weld those to the corner. So now I've got that set up. I've got this straight. I've got that laid out. Everything's good. Now I can do what I was going to do originally, which is come back to, I'm going to turn off all the pieces so I can see what I'm looking at. I'm going to go to poly mode, and I'm going to grab all these faces and delete them. Now, why would I delete those? What's the deal? Holy crap, what are you, crazy? Well, I have my reasons. So we're going to go to 2 for edge mode. We're going to grab this one, and this one. And then, actually, we're just going to grab those 2. And then we're going to do a space bar and snap. Now, if you don't have your snap set up, you have to right-click on this snap menu up here, and it's S for snap. And then yours may be set to, by default, grid points. You want to change that to vertex. Once that's set to vertex and you have the lock on by pushing the space bar, you'll see that it just jumps to these little points. And you can't click somewhere else by accident. So now I'm going to hold Shift and drag and click to there. And now I've got that same kind of angle that I wanted for at least this direction, and we can go from there. If I want to do that for the other one, let's do this. Let's turn off the snap. Let's go to the right hand side for once, and we want to pull this into this height. It's right here. So we're just going to hold the Shift and drag it backwards, and we want to drag it to about right there. So now everything's even across there because it's a little bit sharper of an angle. And in that case, I guess I could have done this too. The reason I couldn't before is because I was going to snap it in 4 directions. So, oops, I'm going to hold this and do that again from the V. Or I can even go to L and then just turn on the ghost. Shift and drag until I get to about right there. And say, okay. Now I've got that set up. I just need to do a couple little things real quick to control target weld. This to that, this to that. And then we can check the side here, L, and see if these are lined up like we want them to be. So we'll grab all of the ones right here. Oops, front, left. This one right here. And we can turn these guys off. And we're just going to go to Y. So they're all snapped together. Now, come back to 2, double click on it, and we're going to get that weirdness. So click on it once, click on it there, click on it here, click on it there. Now I've got all those pieces as one simple object. All I have to do is hold the space bar again. This time I am going to use the snap. Oops, turn off the space bar there. I don't want this one, just those 2. Those 3 right there. Move tool, space, turn on the snap, and hold the Shift button and drag it till I snap to right there. And then space bar, turn off the snap or push the S button, and then again come to here, and we're going to collapse these. So if you ever do this, you may notice that you definitely don't want these to be separate edges or vertices. So if you look over here, I have that one selected, and look, it's 2 verts. So I know that if I select this one, it's going to say a vert number is vertex 28, but this one says 2 verts selected. So I know that it's right, that it needs to be collapsed on top to itself. So I just say collapse, and then now it says vert 36. Okay. So now if I do that final stuff, you'll see I've got my box, I've got my cutout inside of there, and if that's the height I want it to be, that looks right. And I probably should have done the extrusion a little bit deeper, but that's fine. So I've got the base form all laid out now. There's a couple of cuts that I can get rid of. So right now, I can take this and I can go to editable poly, and then I can go to, and you probably want to save this, I can go to 2 for edge mode, grab this edge and control backspace, and then grab like this edge and control backspace, and then probably this edge and control backspace. And I'm down to, how many polys? 268. Okay, so it's quite a bit less. It's almost there. All I really need is a couple of polys. This is exactly where you want to be. But there's a couple things I want to do before we do that. So at this point, the other tutorials had us add these two little pieces on, which we will do, and then unwrap for the whole next week. So we're going to unwrap right now. So the way I unwrap and the way you may unwrap with other teachers is different. That's totally expected. It's the way that my brain works compared to yours. I like to unwrap small amounts of things first and then just symmetry them and stitch them together. Just the way my brain thinks about it. So, and actually my brain is just trying to find the fastest solution there is for it. So I put on a UV Wrap on here, and for me, this is the fastest way to go. It's slower when I talk about it, but it works the same. Okay, so right now I've got all these, and I'm just going to move them off the screen. There's my favorite button inside of the UV Wrap is the lightning bolt button, because I get to say lightning bolt even though it's just quick planar. It reminds me of the LARPer saying lightning bolt, lightning bolt. So I'm going to turn that and click on 15. I'm not turning anything on yet, I'm sorry. Click on 15 degrees. I'm going to click right here, and you'll see that it automatically clicks everything within a 15-degree angle of it at that point. I haven't decided if I like this, but I can always adjust that after the fact. So I'm just going to click that button. Now the reason I like the lightning bolt is, let me turn on these two. So the reason I like the lightning bolt is because it keeps everything perfectly proportion. This is the proportion of the poly on this screen. Now, it may be bigger than it needs to be, but it's correctly proportioned. And what do I mean by proportion? Well, if I do the old way, or if I use the UVW mapping way, which are the same thing essentially as these right here. So if I grab that polygon, or those polygons, and I say planar map, and then I say fit it to the right angle, which should be Y. Actually, this one doesn't. This one's okay. Let's do a different one. Let's do like this guy. Oops, let me get out of here. Okay, still not quite right. You see how it jumped a little bit? That means it's scaled off. But let me show you a more drastic way of looking at it. If I grab this guy, and I'll move this out of the way. If I grab this guy and I take this and I say the planar mapping on it. And I push the planar mapping, and again, this one would be X. I push X. What it does is it tries to fill up that UV space as best it can with the object, not paying attention to the proportions of the vertices and the positions. But if I push this button, you see how it's all stretched out. If I push this button, it all of a sudden is exactly how it's supposed to be. So the lightning bolt button does the proportionally defined edges the way I want them to. So the next thing I'm going to look at is how I want to divide this up. Now, this is a great piece. It'll be all one piece by the time we're done. And the side's probably pretty good. I don't think I probably want the top to be on the same plane. So I'm going to grab like all of these guys right here. I got to get out of this one. Grab all of these guys right here. And take a look at trying the lightning bolt on them and see what we get. Now, what it's doing here and what we're seeing is lightning bolt is trying to make this map fit as best it can with all those pieces. So I'm going to do one more thing and try again. It doesn't work much better, but it's definitely not straight. So how do I deal with this? Well, I'm going to take these two pieces instead, just two simple edges, like there are two simple polygons to do that. Okay, so now if we look at that, it's perfect. I'll move that out of the way, and then I'm just going to take this one separately for right now and do that. And this one separately and do that. I'm going to grab this one and move it out of the way, and grab this one and move it out of the way. And in fact, what I'll do, and you can maybe get an idea, is I'm going to make this be perfectly aligned with this. So I'm going to go to 2, grab this edge, and just say stitch selected. Now you can also use the buttons up here, and they work okay most of the time. And you know, there's some things I like about them, and sometimes they kind of warp your stuff. I'm not nitpicking about how you do it. It's just personal preference at this point. Okay. So what I might do is I'll just grab this edge and do stitch. Yeah. So then what I'll do, actually, let me see what I do. Then my other favorite thing inside of one of my other favorite things inside of ZBrush, inside of Max UV Unwrapper is the relax button, our controls. And you can, again, use these to relax up here, and we can just click it and see what happens. And that works, interestingly, not well. But if we do it this way, it works a lot better for whatever reason. So now our UVs are close. Now the problem we're having is this sucker right here needs to be broken. I just wanted it the right scale. And then I'm going to grab all three of these guys again and try that relax again and see if I get anything better. And it works a lot better now. Okay, so, and then I'm just going to, weld this technically to the vertex mode, target weld, that to that. Okay, and then if I do it one more time, I should be getting something that's pretty good. Okay, so I've got this whole cap set up now. I can move over to this sucker. Now I go back to 3, grab this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and this piece. And I'm going to try and see what lightning bolt does. Bam, lightning bolt. If we look at it, it's not bad. It does a little stretchy stuff right there. So what if we relaxed it a little bit? Oh, wait, now it's almost perfect. It's just doing it nice and clean. Again, fast solutions is what I'm all about. And then now let's take a look at these other little things like this one and this one. The question is, do we want to unwrap it this way? We could go across here and try that, and then do a relax on it and see it's not too bad. And then we could attach these pieces together, but that may be a big piece that we don't want in the end, so I'm just going to leave it for now and do these two pieces real quick. Like that. And then we're going to do lightning bolts, pull this out of the way, pull this out of the way. Now it doesn't matter the scale because it scales itself at the end here. So now we have like this piece set and this piece set, but we're missing like these two. This one's set, that one's not set. So there's a missing one right there. That one I probably will just do by hand over. Ooh, hello. I'm going to turn off the crazy texture at this point. So I'm going to push that button like that. Not sure. Oh, we have the other pieces up here. Okay. So I'm going to see if I do these, if that'll work. You're going to have some stretching. There's just no way around it eventually. But we're going to try and do as least amount as we can. Pull this down here like that far. And I think what I'm going to do in this case is just grab those two and collapse them. I'm looking for collapse weld, so it'll weld them up. I'm going to see what this relax does on it here. Oops, I probably want to do it a little bit differently with the polys right here. Start relax. Okay, so we're at 30 minutes. We're almost done with the unwrapping. And there we go. So now we just have these little pieces left in weird places. So best way to answer these is that this piece, well, we're going to do them separately. So take this one and lightning bolt it, and this one and lightning bolt it. And we're going to take this one and go to 2 and say stitch selected. It's being stupid. Let me see what it's doing. How about 0? There we go. We'll do 0 bias on that. Now it should be both of them that way. Stitch selected. There we go. And then probably what I'd end up doing is just taking these verts right here and then stitching them. Hello. Okay, moving them on top of each other and then welding them. And then I'll grab everything and see if it breaks it. I'm not real crazy about wonky shapes and stuff like that. So I'm going to live with some of this, but all I have to do now, if I grab this right here, I can come up here and use this flat. And this is just like going to help you keep yourself organized. Oops, I went the wrong way. Wonk. And then we're going to take these guys and go like this, and then this one and go like this. And this one, and go like that. Just keeping it clean and keeping it real, as it were. The cleaner it is, the better it looks on your reel, and the cleaner it is, the easier it is for everybody else to go in there. Some people who deal with this stuff so much, they hate seeing ugly stuff. Okay, so you can see that this is a little bit messed up, and really, if we wanted to, we could separate them out. It's concave. This is a good place for it to break. I don't think we're going to have huge problems with this, but if we did, we can deal with it. We can even take one, go here. That's a little bit better there. That one's not going to be that way. Okay. So now we just have this piece. And the point is that I'm going to do them separately here. This isn't going to take 8 weeks. This is going to take 2 hours or an hour of me to do to get this basic form out. And then we come back and edit as we need to. So we will stitch. And sometimes it's best to even have them overlapping like this. Sometimes that works okay. And if you don't like it, then you can stitch them back closed if you need to. So I'm going to come to this edge and figure out where we're looking at here. Stitch. At this edge. That's that one. And see, that may be a better fit. If I take all of these, break them, move them down here. To stitch. Okay. And I'll take So this is the way you figure it out. This is a big puzzle. I tell my kids and my people who don't understand what we do for a living is that I make puzzles for a living, basically. So this last piece should be this one, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, that's fine. I'll just stitch, oops, up here. There we go. Okay. So I've got these pieces, and then I get to decide how I want to stack them together. This piece needs to be by himself. These guys may want to be attached to those. This piece is the top, so he's by himself. It's these three pieces that I have to decide how I want to really get them to be together. And here's the deal. I want to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at, but I also don't want to spend tons of time trying to figure out all that little stuff. I mean, we've done it. I mean, you can ask anybody who does UVs. This is like kind of what we do a lot. What I'm going to do is take this out and break it, and then come to here to 2 and just stitch it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do with this one is go to 4 and break, or 3, I'm sorry, 3 and break it again. And I'm going to go back to 2 and stitch this one in here. So I've got those set up. I've got these are all kind of the same. Now, I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to take 3, I'm going to go to all of them, and I'm going to say one of my favorite tools. Another one of my favorite tools is Pack UVs. And bam. And the other thing you can try is if you use the Pack UVs buttons up here, you can try fill holes and pack and see if it gets them in a little bit tighter. Now, the one thing we probably want to have is a farther gap, but we'll deal with that after we finish it. So we've only got a quarter done, but a quarter mapped, but it's a quarter map that we could have as a tileable texture, and we've taken 34 minutes to make the cube and unwrap it. So I'm going to collapse that down, go to Symmetry, flip it, or X flip it, and then I'm going to decide if I want to do the back. I'm not going to do the back at the same time, so I'm going to go Symmetry. In this case, I'll just say Z, because I want this face to be all together, but I definitely don't need to necessarily remap it if I'm going to use it as a is a tileable texture. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go to this, put another UV wrap on it. See, I'm in and out of these things, in and out, in and out. That's the way you need to think. These things, I know they can be intimidating and people get like, what the heck on them and stuff, but don't. Just come in and out of them. Jump, jump between them. Here's the big thing. If we look at these, I'm going to turn on F2, turns off the rotate thing or the color thing. If I look at this face right here, I'm going to deselect and look at one of these. We'll go by group here. I'm going to grab this whole group and move it out of the way. Okay, so that's the top. If we look at the top, half of it's correct and half of it isn't. So what do? Well, we take this one here and we move it out of the way. And we take this one and we can see this is the one that's written backwards. I think. Yeah. I don't know why it's not. There we go. That's the one written backwards. So we just need to flip it. Bonk. Or that's the one written backwards. Duh. I missed it. Then we're going to flip it. Now, all we have to do is let the computer do its work and grab this edge, double click it, and say stitch. Select it. Or not. There. Oh, I must add the bottom. I totally thought there was two there, but I think there's... Interesting. So you'll see that one of these is flipped too. So I'll grab these edges here. I must have welded them by accident. And just do, I'm sorry, my brain here, flip. Oh, wow. And then break, I guess. I welded them somehow. So, oh, I know what I did. When I stitched them, it stitched them right on top of each other. So I need to break that stitch. So I'll take that, I have both of them selected. You can see that if I do this, I get both of them. And I want just this one separate. So I come in here and say tools, and I say, or I'm sorry, I just say break and I'm right clicking. And I move that one out of the way. And now when I flip it, it goes to the right direction. And if I go to 2 and grab this one, it says stitch. And it's, whoa, this edge, stitch. Jeez. Okay, so now I've got the top and the bottom set for those pieces, and that's the top and that's the lid and the bottom of the box. So what do I have left? Well, I have this piece, right? I need these to be 4. So let me go to front again. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can see already if we look at this one. Here, let's just separate them out. Let's go to 3. Separate them out. Separate them out. Okay. So this one's written backwards, so I'm going to take this one and do flip. Now I know, even if it's going up and down, it doesn't matter. All I care about is the direction they're facing. Go to these two right here and flip. Okay, so then I'm going to go to the edge mode, and I'm going to grab one of the edges here, like this one, and say stitch. And it should match up. And if I come down here to this one, and say stitch, it'll take one of them, and if I do it again and say stitch, it'll do both of them. And now I've got all 4. Well, I better do one more time. Stitch to make sure I get them all. And now I've got this all set up. It's all one piece. It's all beautiful. It's all laid out like I want. And all I have left is these pieces here. So really, I have this one, if I move it up, and then I should have this one. And if I move it over, and then I'll have this one, and that goes to this side, and I'll have this one, and that goes to this side. Turn it sideways. Look, this one's backwards, so flip it. Now it's not. Come over here, look sideways. That one's fine. It's this one that's flipped, so you flip it, and it's just the mirror button. And now I come back up to 2, double click. I'm sorry, 2, double click, and it should be, oh, this edge right here. My bad. So this edge and stitch, and this edge, and you can try and use these, like this custom stitch. I think is supposed to be the same thing, but I always get weird results. Not always, I sometimes get weird results. So I just go back to my file back, and that's just the default thing I go to anymore. So there are other sides of the box, and I've got one side of the box. I've got the lid and the bottom. They're all set up. And now I just need these frames. And now the question is, do you want to spend the time to make these separate? I probably should. Actually, let me see this. Well, we'll just keep going. So what I'm going to do is grab this one, which is flipped. Move it out of the way. I'm going to grab this one again, and that looks like it's correct. I'm going to grab this one, and it's correct. So that means this one has to be flipped. Flip. And now I've got them all correct, and all I have to do is come up here, go to 2, grab an edge, and say stitch, and it should stitch them. Grab an edge, and say stitch. And then I grab these pieces and figure out where they are. They're loners, and there's probably 4 of them, so obviously this one is backwards. Let's go back to 3, grab this one. That one's fine. This one is... maybe it's this one that's not done. Oh, maybe it's just these 2. That one's right. This one's wrong. Flip. And then 2. Stitch selected. And then stitch. Oh, I was wrong. I think it's this one then. No, right. That one. Flip. Now double click. Stitch selected. Okay. Now I've got everything set up. I've got this being the bottom, so I'm going to turn it, not flip it, but turn it this way. So now it's the bottom of it. I'm going to grab this one, which is the top, and flip it the other way. Then I'm going to grab these 2, and they should be like here and here. I'm not really building it, I'm just figuring out where everything is. This is going to be the bottom, so it should probably be flipped, not flipped, wrong button, turn twice, so it matches this edge. Actually, I think I was wrong the first time. This one goes here. This one needs to be flipped. Not flipped, but turned over. Like that. This is the front. It goes in the middle. This is a side over here, which is kind of over there. And then we see that it's sideways, so we definitely don't need the center. We need these pieces, so we're going to rotate it this direction. And then rotate this one that direction. We're going to grab everything, and we're going to do our tools, pack UVs, and rotate, fill holes, and go. Okay. So, if we wanted to, we could tile the front to the back by just leaving it the way it is, and then when we do symmetry, be there. Now, there's some extra room and stuff we can play with. So, don't forget we have those boxes we have to put on here, too. All right. So, next. Let's symmetry it again. I pushed Control X makes it hide, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse to poly. I could have just put a symmetry on top of it, but again, the stack makes me nervous because sometimes it's stupid. And this time I'm only going to do the Z, and I'm sorry, only going to do the Y and flip it. And now I can collapse it again, and then I can go to UV Unwrap, and then I can open up the UV editor and turn this off. And we can see that if we put this on, some of the things are flipped. Go figure. So if we just did this, all of that stuff, since this should be everything that's flipped. Now what I want to do when I select in here, I want to turn off backface culling, which I love that they give us a color or a button icon in one place, and then the other place it's different. So I know all of these are flipped. Okay, so all I have to do is flip them. And then if I want to stitch pieces together, I can do that. I can just move this out of the way. Hello. Move it out of the way. You'll see it's the exact same thing twice. That means that this and this should be stitched together. So some things I'm definitely going to stitch if I'm not doing the tileable stuff. So like this one, I would stitch. Okay, and then, you know, if you want to get it out of the way for your eye's sake, you can do that. Just do this, get out of the way. And then probably this one, 2. So 2, and then stitch. Okay. If I want these sides to, you know, we can. So we can just do where they would. Stitch up is at this hard edge right here. Stitch. And then I can grab the whole thing, move it out of the way. Grab this hard edge here and say stitch. And I've got all those. And like these pieces, whether we want to keep them there or not, it's up to us. This piece right here is our interior. We don't need to stitch this to anything, so they're fine. And these wouldn't stitch to anything either. So what we could do is just grab everything right at this point and see what we get. Now, it may not be what we want, but I want to point out one more thing here. As we do this, as we break down our mesh, the tiles on this become bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's not a good thing. That means that the textures we're using in here are not going to be as efficiently used. And one of the things I didn't check here is pack UVs and rotate and fill holes wasn't on, so let's try that again. Still not too great, but I mean, I can see by organizing things around how to make it a little bit better, like this. You know, like I said, I make puzzles for a living. The other thing I want to do is grab all of these again and do one more thing with this tool and pack UVs. And what it is my padding. That's talking about the gap between these edges. You want to have a little bit of a gap, and 0.1's never enough, so I kind of go up to 0.5 at least, 0.005, and then look at it, and then we can see, oops. You know, we could even go up to 1. I mean, I don't like this. This drives me bonkers, so only because, honestly, it's because Target is what we used to use, would have issues with going to the border. So let's go up to, let's try 0.01. There we go. That's a pretty good gap in them. They're not huge, but they're not lost anywhere. Okay. So now we have our boxes. Now this gives us room to make our box add-ons, which are these things I'm talking about right here, inside of here without any fighting. And they'll fit perfectly inside of here, and it'll be evenly unwrapped in pixel density. So let's do that, and we should be done within an hour. So we're at 47 minutes right now, 10 minutes, and we're done. Okay, so come out of here, do this. And do what I usually, okay, so the way I've seen other people teach this is they just bring a box in and they put it on there, and that's great, and that's one way to do it for sure. But I like to keep people inside of the polygons they're working on. So instead of doing that, and yeah, what I'm going to do, and I probably should have done this before I UV, before I symmetried it again, but anyway, I'm going to pull this out by holding shift. It makes another edge, see, like that. Let's turn that off and keep it clone to element, which would be the same thing as if I made a new object, but I'll turn this to transparent here, but I made a new object and then attached it to itself. I mean, it's the same thing. It's another element. So I'm going to pull this in to about where I think it goes, and this probably could be a little bit longer here. That, sure, and then I'm going to take, yeah, sure, why not. Thinking of ways I would do this. Sorry guys, my brain's thinking here. Actually, I don't want this one. Control backspace, there we go. Double click on this, I'm sorry, click on this, double click this, and then shift, drag it back. So now I've got a thing that goes into the side here. And what I will do is, instead of duplicating this and dragging it down, I will take this and drag it down just that plane. Do you see I just dragged the one face down because I didn't want to have to delete and add. It's just speed thing to me. So I'm going to go back to 2, grab these 2 pieces, and not shift and drag, shift, my hand's wanting to shift today. Drag this down to about where I think it should be. Then I'll grab this edge here, and throw it back until I hit through. Okay, so now I've got, this one may not, yeah it did. Okay, so now if I turn off this, you can see that's all in there, and it's all one piece. Okay, now I just have to do the other side. I'm going to hide that plane right there. Okay, so last thing I need to do is duplicate these 2 on the other side. How is the easiest way to do that? I'll show you a cheat. I'm going to grab this one. Oops, I'm going to grab these elements, this one and this one, like that. And I'm going to shift. I'm going to turn my snap tool, I'm sorry. I'm going to hold shift and drag and then right back onto itself. So you see how it just went right back onto itself? I haven't let go of it. It snapped back to exact position. Okay. So I'm going to say object this time instead of element because I want this to be a separate object. And let me show you the trick here. So whenever you make something, I'll turn off my snap tool. Whenever you make something and make a copy of it, and I'll turn this on so you can see here. Whenever you make a copy of something, it keeps the original object's pivot points. So if I come in here and grab this guy and turn off my snap, and I see that it's got the same pivot point as the original object, and there's 2 of them there, they're over top of each other. So all I have to do is say symmetry and then Y, and if I look on the back side over here, in theory, where did you go? Hold on. Turn off that snap. Oh, I forgot to flip. That, or I could do mirror. But yeah, symmetry and then that, and then delete it. Grab this, come here, grab those, and delete them. Now I've got some on the back and some on the front. All I have to do is come back to my original object and attach this, and now I've got them all set up. Okay, little quick things out of the way, I think. And some people who are going to watch this will say, that's crazy, that's stupid, you should do it this way. And then the one thing about our industry is that there's everybody who comes up, everybody who does their own process thinks that the person before them was totally wrong and that they've got it figured out. So I'm used to it. I'm sure they've got great ways to do stuff, and you're going to learn new. That's the great thing about classes. So let's take a look at what we did to our UVM Wrap here. So we're going to open up our UVM Wrap last time and take a look at this. And we're going to see that our objects don't seem to be anywhere. And that's totally what I expect. I'm going to grab this one. Oh, yeah. I'm going to grab these objects. I have to do it a different way. So in this case, I want to turn this little button on. Instead of having a button that says all objects that match the same thing, here I have to do it this way. All right, so I'm going to grab that one. 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 And look at that. They're all in the same place. What the heck is going on? It's totally what I expect because I made them all out of this polygon, these 2 polygons. So this should be those 2 copies. That's what happens when you dupe something in UVs. It keeps the original objects UVs until you change them. So there's my 4 pieces. So what we could do is we could try real quick to see how bad relax would be on it, and that's what I expect to do. So if I turn on a relax, you'll see that it does this, and that's because it's trying to figure out how to make these corners is the big problem. But we don't want that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to save right now after you hear that noise. That was my computer saying, hey, how are you doing? And, you know, it's just, no, not going to happen. So there's a couple of ways I could do this. I could come in here and say, turn off my object mode, grab this piece. Oops. These 2, I'm going to turn on this F2 so we can see what I grab better. And I can grab these 2 pieces right here. And I go on the back side and grab this one and this one. Go on the top side, grab this one and hope that my misclicked and yeah, okay, everything's selected. And then I'm just going to break. And what that does is it makes those 4 edges that I've just selected separate polygons. So why would I do that? Well, if I take this sucker now and I say relax, it does exactly what I didn't want it to do. Okay, there's one more thing I have to think of, but let me try this one. There we go. Okay, so why did this do this? This did that because of the thing I forgot to check for, because it's a symmetry. If I turn on the checkerboard, we'll see that that one I have selected is backwards. See how it's upside down and backwards? Okay, so that means I have to flip it. Now when I start relax, look, it's perfect. If I grab this one and I can see it's perfect, I just need to do the relax on it. If I grab this one and say, look at it, it looks like it's backwards. One of them's got to be, so I'll try that. Start relax on it. And grab this one and say, take a look at it. It looks fine. Start relax on it. So I've got these 4 things laid out. Now what do I do? What do I do about these things? Well, these could be relaxed too. Now I probably should have flipped them before I broke them off. So just remember that this one's going to be backwards because it attached to this one that was backwards. So I need to flip it real quick. But then I just come over to 2, double click there and say stitch faces. Oops, I don't want the whole thing. Sorry. I'm going to come back to turn that off and just grab this one, and this one, and say stitch selected. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let me do this. I'll flip it again because for whatever reason it didn't like being flipped. So, you know, you learn from what you think you're doing, but then it happens that you did something different. So flip. Now, see, that's what I want. I want these 2 all broken out. Grab this one, and I guess we'll just test it this way and say stitch, and it's backwards, of course. So I'm going to flip this one, grab this one and this one again, and say stitch. So, old school way of doing stuff sometimes is the best way too. So, I'm going to go to 1, vertex mode. I'm going to look at this. This one, stitch selected. This, okay, not stitch. I'm going to go target weld this face to that one. Whenever you grab a target weld, it'll show you that to that, and that to that, like that. Now I should be able to come in here under 3 or polygon mode and do a relax, and it should clean it up. This one too, by the way. Okay. So, I mean, there's other ways to do it. I just, you know, if I had done this in the right order, everything would have been better, but I didn't. So, you get to learn by my mistakes. So, let me see where this one, and let's try this one and this one, and say stitch selected, and that one worked fine. And then we should be this one. Wait. Yeah, this one and this one. And I'm hoping that one's not fine. So I'm going to grab these 2. And I'm going to flip it. And then I'm going to go here. Okay, you can also grab everything there and just start relaxing. It should be fine too, actually. I guess I didn't have to do all that hand stitching. I'm going to let it be ugly and hand do that anyway. Okay, let's turn this off. Our last little things. And now, right now, the way we've designed this is it's all individual. So there is no unique objects, as it were. And here, I'm going to show you another trick you can do. Like, I don't know if I like the scale of these, and I don't like scale to each other. So I can take these things and say pack UVs just with those things and say do that. Then if I move them out, they should be all comparatively the same size. Okay, cool. So if I come back in here and grab that, this should be, just for my own brain, going like this. And this one should too be going the same direction. Like, oops, like that. Okay, so what we get to do, and these 2 should be the opposite, so this should be down like this. What we get to do is try and put this puzzle together with these last couple pieces. It's not a big deal. We are at 59 minutes and 6 seconds. We may actually make it here. First, I'm going to scale them all down. I don't know what 6 seconds, but you get the idea. I can take these suckers and put them over here and then drag them up to match if I wanted to. They're actually much bigger than they need to be, but these have some little details on them I might like to keep. And then this one. And what I might do in this case is take this sucker and put them up here. And just make sure if I scale them down to match that they both at least look the same. And there we go. Now it's unwrapped. You built an object. You built this crate. We've unwrapped it. We've set it up. It's got perfect tiling on it, meaning that if I look at this right here, the only place that there may not be pixel density is in the last little things we put on here, which is fine. I did that actually like that in this case because that's going to need more detail anyway. But if we look at it, everything is evenly divided. Everything is perfectly pixel density except for those smaller pieces, and we can pull those up if we need to. They actually just need to be shrunk on the UVM wrap. And we are good to go. And that is it. And you guys are set. And that is the first lesson, and we are done.